So these were the objects clause of the particular fact which we are seeing, or particular case that we are seeing. Now, what about the further aspect of the case law? Let's see what it means. There was a contract between the directors of the company and Mr. Ritchie. The contract was basically for financial construction of a railway line. Please understand, the discussion is about railway line here. So, the objects of the company, whether it had the power to enter into a contract to construct a railway line or financing to construct a railway line, is basically we have to check the objects of the objects clause of the MOA of the company, which means the objects is basically to make, sell, lend on hire a railway carriage or wagon, but clearly understand the point, at no point of time the objects clause had mentioned about railway line, it had mentioned about railway carriages and wagons. So there is a issue to address. We'll look at it in a more microscopic manner after understanding the second objects clause. The second objects clause was to carry on the business of mechanical engineers and general contractors. General contractors, here the objects of the company meant for mechanical engineers, general contractors, but we also can see the other side of the story, what the other person of the facts of the case have defended, or rather how they have taken this facts into picture. Let us see further. The company ratified the act of the directors by passing a special resolution but cancelled the contract as ultra vires. This is the most critical point of all this case law. What it meant is, company probably realized that they had the right or their powers to do business on railway carriages and wagons, that is either to make, sell or lend on hire railway carriages and wagons, but it realized the fact that it did not have the power to enter into contracts for railway line construction by way of finance or whatever it is. Therefore, they ratified the contract by taking the special resolution route or by passing the special resolution route, but eventually, even after ratifying means correcting whatever powers which was not there earlier in the MOA, by way of a ratification through a special resolution, they have inducted this power to the MOA. Even having done that, probably after consulting with various legal experts, they went on to cancel the contract as an ultra vires transaction. Now that's the twist here, my dear friends. Why at all they had to even go ahead with the special resolution to ratify the contract? Question number one. Question number two, after having ratified the contract to bring it within the powers of MOA, why at all they had to cancel the contract by way of an thought process of ultra vires transaction? Yes, we have answers for the same. Let us see what it is. In this facts of the case, we further see that Mr. Ritchie sued the company and claimed damages for breach of the contract. Fair enough. As far as Ritchie is concerned, Mr. Ritchie has filed a case for breach of contract because the company has cancelled the contract. Now, the stand of Mr. Ritchie further goes on to state that Ritchie's stand was that the contract was within the meaning of general contractors and therefore was within the powers. So even though the fact that the company has ratified the contract and thereafter cancelling the contract thinking that it is ultra vires, the other side of the story of Mr. Ritchie's plea to the court, or Ritchie's stand, can we say, is that he states that the general contractors word used in the second objects clause of the MOA had nothing but the powers to enter into such transactions of construction of a railway line. Therefore, this contract was very much valid and very much within the powers of the company to enter into. Having said that, further, he goes on to state that Mr. Ritchie goes on to state in the court of law, stating that moreover, the company has ratified the contract by majority of the shareholders. So he brings about this point, stating that since earlier the railway line was not inducted in the objects clause of the company, they had by ratification brought into the objects clause even the fact that the ratification has already taken place. The primary point of argument of Mr. Ritchie is that the word general contractor was sufficient enough for the company to enter into such cases of contracts. Now we have heard the story of both the sides, that is the company's side where they initially entered into a transaction, realized that it was not within the powers, then went on to ratify the contract, and then thereafter still they have gone ahead and cancelled the contract. The other side of the story was Mr. Ritchie. He defends the case stating that this right to enter into a contract was very much within the powers of the company, that is the power to enter into construction of a railway line falls into the category of general contractors, and also states that since the company has ratified the initial contract by way of approval from the shareholders, then it is within the power of the company to enter into a contract. Having failed to execute the contract, he is claiming for damages as there is a breach of contract. So this is both the sides of the story, my dear friends. Now let us see what the courts have understood. Court says very clearly these points. Court held it as null and void. After hearing both the parties, courts very clearly have told it is null and void. For that they have to give reason, that is, it said that general contractors were associated with mechanical engineers. General contractors is associated with mechanical engineers and has to be read with in connection with company's main business. What is the company's main business, my dear friends? Here, company's main business is to make, sell or lend on hire railway carriages and wagons. Nowhere it had the clause of railway lines. Notwithstanding the fact that the ratification was made, the cancellation of the contract by the company was in line with the provisions of law, which is nothing but doctrine of ultra vires transaction, which is the company couldn't have entered into such a case of construction of a railway line. Therefore, it was fair enough for the company to cancel the contract under the shelter of doctrine of ultra vires. It does not stop over there. Further, it states that, therefore, the court held that if Ritchie's contention was taken, then it would lead to interpretation that any and every kind of contracts, for example, marine contracts, fire insurance contracts, could also come under the shelter of general contracts. Well, the intention of the company was not so. The general contractors word used in the objects clause was related to mechanical engineers and not any other contract. So if the stand of Mr. Ritchie was taken into consideration by the court, then if the company had entered into any sort of contracts, any nature of the contracts, then definitely the interpretation would mislead the parties to the contract. Therefore, in this simple point, what the court have stated is the word general contractor should relate to mechanical engineer and it should be in line with the primary objects of the business. Primary objects of the business was for railway carriages and wagons and not railway lines. Therefore, the court held it as contract is void, null and void, and it was beyond the powers of the company to enter into such a transaction. Are we clear, my dear friends? So one end we saw the company entering into a contract, then realizing it was not in line or within the powers, therefore procedure of ratification takes place. But even after that, the company cancelled the contract under the shelter of ultra vires transaction. On the other hand, the other party, that is Mr. Ritchie, pleads before the court telling that the word general contractors was sufficient enough to bring within this provisions or to bring within this contract the power of the company to enter into contract for the purpose of construction of a railway line or by way of financing for construction of railway line. Having said, that is, having heard both the parties, what the court said was the word general contractors cannot be given its general meaning, it has to be given a specific meaning. That means the general contractor should relate to mechanical engineers and not to any other field. If the interpretation of Mr. Ritchie were to be accepted, then the company could have entered into any sort of contracts which would create more confusions and more legal litigations. Therefore, it was fair for the court to uphold the fact that the doctrine of ultra vires transaction, it was beyond the powers of the company to enter into such a transaction. I hope you got these points, my dear friends. If you have any doubts, please do mail me your doubts. I shall revert back to you. You know my mail ID, rohitacademy@gmail.com. I will revert back to you on those things. Yes, having done all these exercises, the last but not the least is to cover up the summary part of doctrine of ultra vires transaction. Very interesting. Let's note what it is. When an act is performed, even if it was legally within itself, but not authorized by the objects clause of the MOA, then it is ultra vires the company and is null and void. I've just charted out what is the summary points of ultra vires transaction, probably an expected question for your exam. So, all I'm trying to explain that in first point is, if a contract is entered into by the company, the contract per se could be legal. Entering into such cases could be legal. For example, entering into construction of a railway line could be legal in itself. Giving loans to another person could be legal in itself. But if that contract was not authorized by the objects clause, if you don't have the power to enter into such contracts under the objects clause of the MOA, then such contracts can be termed as ultra vires the company, and therefore it has to be held null and void. Second point, an act which is ultra vires the company cannot be ratified by the unanimous consent of all the shareholders. Please connect it here. Ritchie's stand was that even though the company has ratified the contract by the consent of all shareholders, courts decided that it was still an ultra vires transaction. So there comes the point here, connecting point, which says the act, even if it is, the act, if the moment it was ultra vires, it is immaterial whether the ratification has taken place by even all the shareholders of the company by way of a resolution. It is immaterial. So you can't do a post facto correction of the powers what you didn't have. Therefore, it was pretty straightforward that even if a unanimous consent was obtained after the act is executed, that will not suffice for correcting what was not there. That means what power was not there cannot be corrected thereafter. It has to be treated as beyond the powers, that is ultra vires. Third point is pretty interesting. Please check this. If an act is ultra vires the directors but intra vires the company, then it can be ratified by the members by a resolution passed at the general meeting. Please understand the difference between both. The second point said that if it is beyond the powers of the company, ratification is not possible even by all the shareholders. But the third point is telling, if the act is ultra vires the directors, that means if the directors have exceeded their power in performing an activity or entering into a transaction, however, that exceeding of the power is within the limits given under MOA, then we can say director has exceeded his power, but that is within the limits given under the MOA. Therefore, it is ultra vires the directors, no doubt, but it's intra vires the company, within the powers of the company. Such cases can be ratified by the members by passing a resolution in general meeting. So if a director has exceeded, it can be ratified. If a director has exceeded in such a way that it exceeds the power of the company only, then it cannot be ratified. As simple as that. Then the last part, if an act is ultra vires the articles of association, then it can be ratified by altering the articles of association by a special resolution passed at the general meeting. So we go on to check what if the act or what if the transaction which was executed was beyond beyond the articles of association. Then the only option which the company has is alter the articles of association by way of a passing of a special resolution minded here. It has to be by way of a special resolution. Once the special resolution is passed and AOA is altered, then it is said to be ratified and it is in line or that the contract can go through or the transaction can go through. It cannot be said that it is ultra various. So these were the summary points as far as ultra various transaction is concerned. A brief noting on other points. The disadvantages of this doctrine is greater than the advantages of this doctrine in protecting the shareholders and creditors' interest. By this statement, what do I mean? The doctrine has certain advantages, certain disadvantages. In the context of protecting the shareholders and the creditors' interest, this doctrine, it has more disadvantages than its advantages. For example, members may restrain the directors in performing a particular or executing a particular act. I'm very clear in this point where members can restrain, can stop the directors in executing a particular act, but it causes nuisance as it prevents the company from changing its activities which was agreed by all. Which means when all the members, when they entered into to start the company, they had a vision, they had a bigger thought process. They wanted to achieve this, they wanted to achieve that. For that, the only path is growth plan. Growth plan, I mean expansion, entering into new line of activities, new businesses. Now, if a company wants to enter into a new line of activity and wants to do new businesses, and the shareholders are objecting or restraining the directors to do such an act, then it causes nuisance. Neither the company is winning nor the shareholders are winning. To that extent, we can say that it has more disadvantages than advantages. Further, the purpose of this doctrine can be defeated by altering the objects clause by a special resolution of the shareholders. Let's say there were 100 shareholders and special resolution means 75% of the members sitting and voting. Let's say 10 of the shareholders, 10 member shareholders were objecting or restraining the directors to execute a transaction. Then what best the directors can do is they can defeat the provisions of doctrine of ultra vires by amending the objects clause or by altering the objects clause by just that 75% special resolution, which defeats the purpose of ultra vires transaction. In simple words, out of 100 members, if 10 members were objecting, the company can go for an alteration of memorandum of association to infuse this new business, get it approved through special resolution, which 75% is the criteria, and thereby the 10% people who were objecting it, that objection is totally defeated. They were objecting it under the shelter of doctrine of ultra vires, but that can be defeated by way of alteration of objects clause through a special resolution. Yes, of course, we have something called protection of minority interest that will come in your final level. We shall discuss that at that point of time. As of now, what you should understand is basically doctrine of ultra vires transaction is a transaction which is done beyond the powers of the company. It is non-operative, null and void. Suit for action cannot be taken by the company on the third person or the third person on the company, because the third person, its connected topic is doctrine of constructive notice, because MOA is a public document. So keeping all this in mind, you have to write your answers. Please do revise this topic again and again. It is an expected question. When I have to conclude all these things, you have to basically link MOA, AOA, doctrine of ultra vires transaction, doctrine of indoor management, and doctrine of constructive notice. These 5 points are beautiful in itself. It provides and gives you much in-depth opportunities for analyzing any particular case. So please do revise this topic, and if you have any doubts, do get back to me at roadsacademy@gmail.com. Mail it to me, I will revert back to you. Thank you so much.